The leather of Adrian Knight's office chair squeaked beneath me as I shifted position for the third time in as many minutes, the sound unnaturally loud in the hushed space. My fingers flew across the keyboard, transcribing notes from his morning meeting while my lower back protested the 4 hours I'd already spent hunched over this desk. The scent of his cologne, something dark and expensive with notes of cedar and bergamot, lingered in the air even though he'd left an hour ago for lunch with investors. It was a smell I'd come to associate with danger and desire in equal measure, a combination that kept me off balance every single day. 6 months. That's how long I'd been Adrian Knight's personal secretary, and still, the sight of him walking through that door every morning sent my pulse racing in a way that had nothing to do with professional anxiety. He was beautiful in the way dangerous things are beautiful, all sharp angles and controlled power wrapped in $1,000 suits. Dark hair swept back from a face that could have been carved from marble, storm gray eyes that missed nothing, a mouth that rarely smiled but when it did, made my knees weak. I was pathetic. Completely, utterly pathetic. The phone on my desk buzzed with an incoming text. My brother, Matt. Still on for tonight? You promised. No backing out. I'd been trying to back out all week, but Matt had insisted. His friend was in town, just for the weekend, and they wanted to check out that new club downtown, the one with the impossible wait list that somehow Matt had gotten us on. The thought of loud music and crowded spaces after the week I'd had made me want to curl up in bed with a book instead. But I'd promised. And I never broke promises to Matt, not after everything. Fine. But if I hate it, I'm leaving early. Deal. Pick you up at 9. I set the phone down and returned to my work, trying to ignore the way my eyes kept drifting to the closed door of Adrian's private office. He'd be back soon. He always came back by 2, like clockwork, expecting his afternoon schedule, correspondence, and a fresh cup of black coffee waiting for him. I'd learned his rhythms quickly, had adapted to his exacting standards, his preference for silence over small talk, his habit of standing too close when reviewing documents, close enough that I could feel the heat radiating from his body. The elevator chimed, announcing his arrival. My spine straightened automatically, hands positioning themselves properly on the keyboard, eyes fixed on the screen, even though I was no longer processing the words I was typing. The door to the outer office opened, and I felt, rather than saw him enter, the air pressure changing subtly with his presence. Miss Collins, his voice was a low rumble, precise and controlled, with just a hint of an accent that suggested Irish roots tempered by years in America. I looked up, offering the polite, professional smile I'd perfected over 6 months. Mr. Knight, your 2 o'clock is confirmed, and I've prepared the briefing you requested. I gestured to the folder on the corner of my desk, not trusting myself to stand and hand it to him. The black pencil skirt I wore was professional but unforgiving, and I'd already caught him looking at my legs once this morning, though his expression had revealed nothing. He crossed to my desk with that fluid grace that reminded me of a predator, all coiled energy beneath perfect control. His hand reached for the folder, but his eyes remained on me, assessing in a way that made my skin heat. You look tired. The observation caught me off guard. Adrian Knight didn't do personal observations. He commanded, directed, occasionally praised my work, but never commented on my appearance beyond ensuring I maintained his standards for how his office should be presented. I'm fine, sir. Just a long week. It's only Wednesday. His lips quirked slightly, not quite a smile. Perhaps you're not sleeping well. The knowing tone in his voice made my cheeks flush. He couldn't possibly know about the dreams, the ones where those gray eyes looked at me with something other than professional detachment, where that controlled facade cracked, and he touched me the way I sometimes imagined when I was alone and honest with myself. I sleep perfectly well, Mr. Knight. The lie came smoothly, practiced. Will there be anything else? He studied me for a moment longer, And I had the unsettling sensation that he could see right through me, could read every inappropriate thought I'd ever had about him. Then he straightened, the moment passing, walls slamming back into place. Ensure the conference room is set up for the 2 o'clock, and cancel my 7 o'clock dinner. Something's come up. Of course. He disappeared into his office, the door clicking shut with quiet finality, and I released the breath I'd been holding. This was my life now, walking a tightrope between professionalism and desire, maintaining perfect composure while my insides turned molten every time he came near. By 5 o'clock, I was drained. The 2 o'clock meeting had run long, with Adrian emerging only to request additional documents, each interruption another opportunity for those gray eyes to linger on me a moment too long. Or was I imagining it? Reading things into neutral interactions, because I was desperate for any sign that he saw me as something more than efficient office equipment? You're leaving. It wasn't a question. He'd appeared in his doorway, jacket off, sleeves rolled to his elbows, exposing forearms corded with muscle and scattered with dark hair. The sight shouldn't have affected me the way it did. It's 5:30, sir. Unless you need anything else? Where are you going? The question was casual, but something in his tone made me pause. Out with my brother. Why? Nowhere important, I hope. You look like you need rest, not entertainment. Irritation flared, sudden and sharp. He had no right to comment on my plans, no right to that vaguely disapproving tone. I was his secretary, not his property. I can manage my own social calendar, Mr. Knight. His eyebrows rose fractionally, the only sign of surprise at my uncharacteristic sharpness. Then that almost smile appeared again, dangerous and unsettling. Of course you can. Enjoy your evening, Miss Collins. The dismissal was clear, and I gathered my things quickly, desperate to escape the suffocating awareness that filled the space between us. Only when I was safely in the elevator, doors closing on his floor, did I allow myself to slump against the wall. This couldn't continue. This constant state of tension, of wanting something I could never have from a man who probably didn't even see me as fully human. Maybe tonight would help. Maybe losing myself in music and crowds would remind me there was a world beyond Adrian Knight's orbit. Matt picked me up at 9 exactly, his beat-up Honda a stark contrast to the sleek black vehicles that surrounded Adrian's building. My brother was all smiles and enthusiasm, his friend Ryan equally energetic as they discussed the club we were headed to. You're going to love it, Bree. The music is incredible, and the vibe is exactly what you need after being cooped up in that office all week. I'd chosen my outfit carefully, a deep blue dress that was daring for me, falling to mid-thigh with a neckline that hinted at curves usually hidden beneath conservative work attire. My hair was down, loose waves instead of the severe bun I wore to the office. I looked different. I felt different. For a few hours, I could be someone other than Adrian Knight's perfectly professional secretary. The club was everything Matt had promised, pulsing with bass that I could feel in my chest, lights cutting through artificial smoke, bodies moving in rhythm on the packed dance floor. We found a spot near the bar, and Matt ordered drinks while Ryan surveyed the crowd with the practiced eye of someone who knew how to have a good time. Come on, Matt said, pulling me toward the dance floor after I'd downed half my drink for courage. You need to relax. He was right. The music was infectious, and surrounded by strangers, I could let go of the careful control I maintained every day. I danced with Matt, with Ryan, let the rhythm move through me, forgot about gray eyes and cedar cologne, and the ache of wanting someone I couldn't have. I was laughing at something Matt said, his arm around my shoulders in that casual brotherly way, when I felt it. That prickling awareness, the sense of being watched. I turned, scanning the crowd, and my heart stopped. Adrian Knight stood at the VIP section's edge, elevated above the main floor, his gray eyes locked on me with an intensity that cut through the chaos like a blade. He wasn't alone. Several men in expensive suits flanked him, clearly business associates, but his attention was entirely on me. On me and Matt, specifically on Matt's arm around my shoulders. The expression on his face was unlike anything I'd seen before. Pure, undiluted fury barely contained beneath that iron control. His jaw was clenched, hands gripping the railing in front of him so tightly his knuckles had gone white. He looked like he wanted to murder someone, and that someone was probably my brother. Bree? Matt followed my gaze, his arm dropping automatically. Who's that? Before I could answer, Adrian was moving, cutting through the crowd with single-minded determination, people parting instinctively before him. His eyes never left mine, and I couldn't look away, frozen like prey watching a predator's approach. He reached us in seconds that felt like hours, his presence immediately commanding attention. The space around us cleared as if by magic, clubgoers sensing danger and creating distance. Miss Collins. His voice was deadly quiet, but it carried over the music. This place is not for you. The words landed like a slap. Around us, people were staring, intrigued by the drama unfolding. Matt tensed beside me, confused but protective. Excuse me? I found my voice, though it shook with a mixture of embarrassment and fury. What gives you the right? I'm not discussing this here. You're leaving, now. His hand reached for my arm, proprietary and commanding. That's when Matt stepped between us, his frame smaller than Adrian's, but his stance unmistakably protective. Hey, back off. That's my sister you're talking to. The word sister hung in the air. I watched Adrian's face, saw the moment comprehension dawned, followed immediately by something that looked almost like horror. His hand dropped, his entire posture shifting as the reality of his mistake crashed over him. Your brother, he repeated, the words emerging slowly, carefully, as if he was testing their weight. Yes, my brother. Matt Collins. Matt, this is Adrian Knight, my boss. I emphasized the last word, letting him hear my anger, my humiliation. Who apparently thinks he has the right to dictate where I spend my personal time. Adrian's throat worked as he swallowed, and for the first time since I'd met him, he looked genuinely uncertain. I apologize. I misunderstood the situation. Clearly, my voice was ice. Now, if you'll excuse us, we were having a perfectly nice evening before you decided to ruin it. I grabbed Matt's arm and turned away, pulling him toward the exit before I could see any more, before Adrian could say anything else that would make this worse. Behind us, I could feel his stare boring into my back, but I didn't turn around. Couldn't turn around without losing the fragile grip I had on my composure. That's your boss? Matt asked once we were outside, the cool night air a relief after the club's oppressive heat. He seemed unhinged, controlling, completely out of line, I supplied bitterly. I was going to say possessive, but yeah, those work too. Matt studied my face in the streetlight. Bree, does he always act like that? No, never. I don't understand what just happened. But that was a lie. I understood perfectly. Adrian Knight had seen me with another man and lost control, had let whatever simmering attraction I'd sensed between us explode into jealous fury. And now I had to face him tomorrow, had to walk into that office and pretend none of this had happened. Maybe you should find a new job, Matt suggested gently. I shook my head. I can handle Adrian Knight. But as I said it, I wondered if it was true. Because the man I'd seen tonight wasn't the controlled, distant boss I thought I knew. He was something far more dangerous, unpredictable, and intense in ways that both terrified and thrilled me. And on Monday morning, I would have to look him in the eye and figure out what happened next. The weekend passed in a blur of anxiety and overthinking. Every time I closed my eyes, I saw Adrian's face in that club, the raw fury transforming his usually controlled features into something almost feral. And then the horror, when he realized his mistake, that brief vulnerability before his walls slammed back into place. I replayed the scene obsessively, trying to decode what it meant, what it changed between us. Monday morning arrived with all the inevitability of a death sentence. I stood outside the building at 7:15, my usual arrival time, staring up at the chrome and glass tower that housed Knight Enterprises. My reflection in the revolving doors showed a woman in her typical armor: charcoal pencil skirt, cream blouse buttoned to the throat, hair secured in that severe bun, minimal makeup, professional, untouchable. Exactly what I needed to be to survive whatever awaited me on the 42nd floor. The elevator ride felt eternal. Each floor's ding counted down to the moment I'd have to face him. Would he pretend nothing happened? Would he fire me? The possibilities spiraled through my mind until the doors finally opened onto the hushed luxury of the executive suite. I walked through the outer office, my heels clicking against marble, and stopped dead. My desk, usually pristine and exactly as I left it, was transformed. A massive bouquet of white roses, easily 3 dozen, dominated the space, their scent filling the air with something too sweet, too cloying. Beside them sat a small velvet box, and a cream envelope with my name written in bold, masculine script I recognized from documents I'd filed hundreds of times. Adrian's handwriting. My hands trembled as I set down my bag and reached for the envelope. The paper was expensive, heavy stock that probably cost more than my entire outfit. Inside, a single card with 3 words. Forgive me. Please. I stared at those words for a long moment, my thumb tracing the pressed letters. Adrian Knight didn't apologize, didn't say please, didn't beg for anything from anyone. The man I'd worked for over 6 months was carved from ice and iron, unbending and absolute in his authority. This was something else entirely. The velvet box beckoned. I opened it with hesitant fingers, my breath catching at what lay inside. A delicate platinum bracelet, simple and elegant, with a single sapphire set into the band. It was beautiful. It was also completely inappropriate for an employer to give his secretary. Do you like it? His voice from behind me made me jump, nearly dropping the box. I spun to find Adrian standing in his office doorway, and the sight of him stole whatever response I'd been forming. He looked terrible, exhausted, with dark circles under his eyes and stubble shadowing his jaw instead of his usual impeccable grooming. His shirt was wrinkled, tie loosened, and I had the distinct impression he'd been here all night. Mr. Knight. I set the box down carefully, my professional mask sliding into place. This is too much. I can't accept. Please. He crossed to me, moving slowly as if afraid I might bolt. Let me apologize properly. What I did Friday night was unforgivable. I had no right to speak to you that way, no right to interfere in your personal life. No, you didn't. I kept my voice cool, measured, even though my heart was hammering. This close, I could see the tension in his shoulders, the way his hands were clenched at his sides, as if restraining himself from reaching for me. I saw you with him, with your brother, and I... He paused, jaw working. I lost control. It won't happen again. Why? The question escaped before I could stop it. Why did you lose control? His gray eyes met mine, and for a moment, the careful mask he always wore cracked, revealing something raw and desperate underneath. You know why. The words hung between us, heavy with implication. My mouth went dry. Mr. Knight. Adrian. When we're alone, call me Adrian. That's not appropriate. Nothing about this is appropriate, Brianna. My name in his mouth, for the first time without the formal Miss Collins, sent a shiver down my spine. But I won't pretend anymore that you're just my secretary. that you don't affect me every single day in ways you shouldn't. I should have been professional, should have maintained boundaries, reminded him of the power dynamic, all the reasons this was a terrible idea. Instead, I heard myself whisper, "How do I affect you?" His hands lifted, hovering near my face but not quite touching, as if he was afraid I'd disappear. You walk into a room and the air changes. I watch you work, so focused and competent, and want to scatter every paper on your desk just to get your attention. You bite your lip when you're concentrating, and I think about. He cut himself off, his jaw clenching. This is wildly inappropriate. I'm sorry. I'm making this worse. You're my boss, I said weakly, the protest sounding hollow even to my own ears. I know. And I'll respect that boundary if you tell me to. But Brianna, if there's any chance, any possibility that you feel even a fraction of what The elevator chimed, announcing an early arrival. We sprang apart like guilty teenagers, Adrian retreating toward his office while I fumbled with the roses, trying to look busy. By the time David Reeves from accounting rounded the corner, we were the picture of professional distance. But something had shifted. A line had been crossed, and there was no going back. Unearthing in the rest of the day was torture. Adrian maintained his usual professional demeanor during meetings, but I caught him watching me constantly, his gaze heavy and intent. Every interaction felt charged, loaded with subtext. When he needed a document and our fingers brushed during the handoff, electricity sparked between us. When he stood behind my chair to review something on my computer, his breath warm against my neck, I had to grip the desk to steady myself. By lunch, I was wound so tightly I thought I might snap. I escaped to the break room, needing space to breathe, to think, to figure out what the hell I was doing. That's where Janine from HR found me, her face pinched with concern. "Brianna, can we talk for a minute?" Dread pooled in my stomach. "Of course." She closed the door, lowering her voice. "I'm probably overstepping here, but I consider us friends. The flowers on your desk this morning. People are talking." "They're just an apology. I accidentally offended Mr. Knight over the weekend." Janine's expression said she didn't believe me for a second. "Honey, I've worked here for 12 years. Adrian Knight doesn't send flowers and jewelry as casual apologies. Be careful, okay? He's not. He's complicated." "What do you mean?" She hesitated, clearly debating how much to say. "There are rumors about his personal life, about what he's involved in beyond the legitimate business. I don't know details, but the kind of men he meets with, the way security around him operates. Let's just say Knight Enterprises isn't the only enterprise Adrian Knight runs." The implication chilled me. "Are you saying he's—" "I'm saying be careful. He's dangerous in more ways than just being your boss." She squeezed my shoulder. "And for what it's worth, I've never seen him look at anyone the way he looks at you. But that doesn't necessarily make it safe." After she left, I sat in the empty break room, Janine's warning echoing in my mind. What did I really know about Adrian Knight? Only what he allowed me to see in the office. The rest was shadows and speculation, a carefully constructed facade that might be hiding something dark. I should have been terrified, should have started updating my resume, planning my escape from whatever dangerous game I'd stumbled into. Instead, I found myself intrigued, drawn to the mystery of him in ways that probably said concerning things about my judgment. When I returned to my desk, there was a note waiting, written in Adrian's bold script. "My office, 5:30, please." I knocked on his door at exactly 5:30, my heart in my throat. His voice, deep and commanding, called for me to enter. He was standing by the floor-to-ceiling windows overlooking the city, his back to me, shoulders tense beneath his perfectly tailored jacket. "You wanted to see me, Mr. Knight." "Adrian," he corrected without turning. And yes, close the door, please. I did, the soft click seeming unnaturally loud. The office suddenly felt much smaller, the space between us charged with tension. Janine spoke to you today. Not a question. Of course he knew. He probably knew everything that happened in this building. Yes. And she warned you about me. He finally turned, his expression unreadable. Did she tell you I'm dangerous? She implied it. She's right to warn you. I am dangerous, Brianna, in ways you can't imagine. But never to you. He crossed the room slowly, deliberately, giving me time to retreat if I wanted. I stayed rooted in place. Never to you. Who are you, really? A ghost of a smile touched his lips. That's a complicated question with an even more complicated answer. The short version? My family built an empire that exists both above and below the legal line. I inherited that empire and everything that comes with it. Power, wealth, enemies, obligations. The Irish mob, I said quietly, the pieces clicking into place. The meetings with hard-eyed men. The security that followed him everywhere. The way people stepped carefully around him. Among other ventures. But I'm working to change that legacy. To shift everything into legitimate channels. It's a slow process with dangerous complications. His gray eyes held mine, which is why I shouldn't drag you into it. Why I should maintain professional distance and let you continue your life unaffected by mine. Should, I repeated, but won't? I can't. The admission seemed torn from him. I've tried. For 6 months, I've tried to see you as just my secretary, to ignore how I feel when you're near, how empty this office feels when you leave at night. And then I saw you Friday with another man, and I lost my fucking mind. The raw honesty in his voice, the vulnerability he was showing, cracked something in my chest. It was my brother. I know that now. And the humiliation of my mistake, of making such a scene. I haven't slept since. Haven't been able to stop thinking about how I ruined everything with my jealousy. I took a step toward him, drawn by something I couldn't name. Maybe you didn't ruin everything. Hope flared in his eyes, quickly tempered by caution. Brianna, if we do this, if we cross this line, everything changes. You need to understand what you'd be stepping into. Then tell me, help me understand. He moved closer, close enough that I had to tilt my head back to maintain eye contact. I'm possessive, territorial. When something is mine, I protect it with everything I have. And if you become mine, Brianna, everyone will know it. My enemies, my allies, the entire city. You'll be marked as important to me, which makes you a target. That sounds like a warning. It is. I'm giving you one chance to walk away, to keep your life uncomplicated and safe. Because if you stay, if you say yes to this, I won't let you go easily. His hand lifted to cup my face, thumb brushing my cheekbone with devastating gentleness. The touch sent heat flooding through me, my breath catching audibly. What if I don't want to walk away? Then God help us both, he murmured, and closed the distance between us. His kiss was nothing like I'd imagined during those long, lonely nights. It wasn't gentle or tentative. It was consuming, desperate. 6 months of restrained desire finally unleashed. His hands tangled in my hair, pulling it free from its bun as my arms wrapped around his neck, pulling him closer, impossibly closer. When we finally broke apart, both breathing hard, he rested his forehead against mine. Say yes, Brianna. Tell me you're mine. I should have thought about it longer, should have been rational and careful. Instead, I heard myself whisper, yes. The smile that transformed his face was beautiful and terrifying in equal measure. Then let me take you to dinner. Let me do this properly. Okay. Tomorrow night, I'll pick you up at 7. He kissed me again, softer this time. And Brianna, wear something beautiful. I want everyone to see what I've been lucky enough to claim. As I left his office on unsteady legs, my lips still tingling from his kiss, I wondered if I'd just made the best or worst decision of my life. Probably both. Either way, there was no going back now. The restaurant Adrian chose was the kind of place I'd only ever read about in magazines, where a single meal cost more than my monthly rent, and the waiting list was measured in months, not weeks. The maitre d' greeted him by name, leading us to a private corner booth that offered both intimacy and a clear view of the entire dining room. Security concerns, I realized, watching how Adrian positioned himself to keep his back to the wall, his eyes constantly scanning for threats, even as he smiled at me across the candlelit table. I'd followed his instruction about wearing something beautiful, choosing a deep emerald dress that hugged my curves in ways my work clothes never did. The moment he'd picked me up, the way his eyes had darkened as they traveled over me, made every penny of my splurge worth it. "You're staring," I said softly, a smile tugging at my lips. "I'm memorizing," he corrected, reaching across the table to take my hand. His thumb traced circles on my palm, the simple touch sending shivers up my arm. "How you look right now, in this light. The way that dress makes your eyes look impossibly green. How when you smile, really smile, you have this dimple right here." His finger touched my cheek, the gesture achingly tender. "Adrian Knight, are you a romantic?" His expression turned wry. "Not typically. You seem to bring out sides of me I didn't know existed." The waiter appeared and Adrian ordered for both of us in flawless Italian, the language rolling off his tongue with casual elegance. I watched him, fascinated by this version of him I'd never seen. In the office, he was all business, controlled and commanding. Here, with his jacket off and his tie loosened, candlelight softening the hard edges of his face, he seemed almost human. "Tell me about your family," he said once we were alone again. "Your brother seems protective of you." "Matt's been looking out for me since we were kids. Our parents died when I was 16, and he basically raised me even though he was only 20 himself." I took a sip of wine, letting the memory wash over me without the usual sting. "He worked 3 jobs to keep me in school, made sure I went to college. Everything I have, I owe to him." Adrian's expression darkened. "I'm sorry. For what I said to him, for assuming he forgave you already. I called him yesterday, explained that my boss had overstepped and apologized. I didn't mention the hour-long interrogation that followed, Matt's protective instincts going into overdrive. But he wants to meet you properly, says any man interested in his sister needs to pass inspection." I'd expect nothing less. His fingers tightened on mine. "And he should be protective. You deserve people who look out for you." "What about your family? You mentioned an empire you inherited." His jaw tightened, the openness shuddering briefly before he consciously relaxed. "My father, Liam Knight, built Knight Enterprises from nothing. He came from Belfast with empty pockets and a sharp mind. Started with a single pub, then another, then investments and properties until he owned half the city. Some of it legal, most of it not. And you inherited all of it. When I was 25, too young, too unprepared, but he didn't give me a choice. Heart attack in his office, dead before the ambulance arrived." Adrian's thumb stilled on my hand. I'd known about the darker side of his business, had worked in it since I was 16, but running it was different, being responsible for hundreds of people, for decisions that could cost lives. I had to grow up fast. The vulnerability in his voice made my chest ache. That's a lot of weight to carry alone. I had my brothers, Colum and Finn. They helped shoulder the burden, kept the wolves at bay while I figured out how to lead. His eyes met mine, shadows lurking in their gray depths. But even they don't know everything. Some decisions, some darkness, you carry alone because sharing it would only spread the poison. I squeezed his hand. You don't have to carry it alone anymore. Not if you don't want to. Something in his expression cracked, revealing a hunger that had nothing to do with the food being placed before us. Brianna, I need you to understand something. What I feel for you, it's not casual. It's not something I can compartmentalize or control. I want all of you, completely, and I want you to know exactly what that means. Then tell me. No more half-truths or careful omissions. He was quiet for a long moment, clearly weighing his words. When he spoke, his voice was low, meant only for me. 6 months ago, you walked into my office for your interview. I took one look at you, so nervous and earnest in that horrible bargain suit, and something in me shifted. I knew I shouldn't hire you, knew you'd be a distraction I couldn't afford, but I couldn't let you walk out that door. I wore a terrible suit, I admitted with a small laugh, trying to lighten the intensity of the moment. You were beautiful, and every day since, watching you work, seeing your intelligence and dedication, the way you handle pressure without breaking. It's been torture, especially when I could see you looking at me sometimes, when you thought I wasn't paying attention. Heat flooded my cheeks. I didn't think you noticed. I notice everything about you, the way you tap your pen when you're thinking, how you take your coffee with too much cream and sugar, the fact that you always arrive 15 minutes early and stay late without being asked, that you're kind to everyone, even the security guards and maintenance staff that others ignore. His intensity pinned me in place. You see people, Brianna, really see them. It's rare in my world, where everyone wants something, where every interaction is a transaction. And what do you want from me? Everything. Your thoughts, your time, your trust. I want to know what makes you laugh, what keeps you up at night. I want to be the one you call when you're scared or sad or celebrating. I want. He paused, jaw working. I want rights to you that I haven't earned yet, but intend to. The possessiveness in his words should have alarmed me. Instead, it sent a thrill through my veins. That's a lot to ask. I know. Which is why I'm offering everything in return. My protection, my resources, my complete devotion. When Adrian Knight claims something, Brianna, he doesn't do it halfway. I'm not something to be claimed, I said softly, testing him. No, you're not. You're someone to be cherished, protected, worshipped. He leaned forward, his voice dropping to a rough whisper. But I won't lie to you about my nature. I'm possessive and territorial. If another man looks at you the way that bartender is right now, I'll want to break his hands. If someone threatens you, I'll destroy them without hesitation. That's who I am. I glanced over to find the bartender quickly looking away, his face pale. You're scaring him. Good. He should be scared. You're mine now, and everyone needs to know it. The declaration should have been off-putting, too much too fast. Instead, something in me responded to his intensity, to the certainty in his voice. I'd spent my whole life being careful, being sensible, protecting myself. Maybe it was time to take a risk on something dangerous and beautiful. If I'm yours, I said slowly, watching his reaction, then you're mine too. That's how this works. Satisfaction blazed in his eyes. Absolutely. I'm yours, Brianna Collins, every dangerous, fucked up part of me. The rest of dinner passed in a blur of conversation and heated glances. He told me about his mother, Siobhan, who died when he was 12, leaving his father to raise 3 wild boys alone. About Colum's reckless streak and Finn's ruthless business sense. About the legitimate businesses he was slowly building to eventually replace the illegal ones. About his dream of a legacy his children could be proud of. Children. The word hung in the air between us, heavy with implication. Getting ahead of yourself? I teased, trying to lighten the moment. Maybe. But when I know what I want, I don't see the point in pretending otherwise. His hand found mine again, possessive and warm. I want a future with you, Brianna. I want to wake up next to you every morning and fall asleep with you every night. I want to watch you be brilliant in meetings and then take you home and make you forget your own name. Adrian, I breathed, his name a prayer and a plea. Tell me you want that too. Tell me I'm not alone in this madness. You're not alone, I whispered. I want it too. I want you, even though I shouldn't, even though it's complicated and dangerous and probably a terrible idea. The best things usually are. He signaled for the check, his eyes never leaving mine. Come home with me tonight. Let me show you what being mine really means. My breath caught. I'm not. Understanding softened his expression. We'll go at your pace. I just want more time with you. More of this. But if you're not ready, if you'd rather I take you home. No, I interrupted, the word coming out more vehement than intended. I want to go with you. I want to see where you live, who you are outside the office. The smile he gave me was devastating. Then let's go home. His penthouse was everything I'd expected and nothing like I'd imagined. Luxurious, yes, with floor-to-ceiling windows overlooking the glittering city, but also warm, lived in. Books everywhere, framed photographs of his brothers, comfortable furniture that invited you to relax rather than admire from a distance. It's beautiful, I said, turning slowly to take it all in. It's home. He came up behind me, his hands settling on my waist, pulling me back against his chest. And now you're here, making it even better. I turned in his arms, looking up at his face, at the vulnerability and desire warring in his expression. I'm nervous, I admitted. Good. So am I. At my surprised look, he smiled. You matter, Brianna. This matters. Of course I'm nervous. Adrian Knight, powerful mob boss, nervous about a woman? About you. Always about you. He cupped my face in his hands, his touch achingly gentle. Can I kiss you? You did yesterday. That was desperation and relief. This is different. This is a promise. I didn't trust my voice, so I simply nodded. His kiss was slow, thorough, a claiming that went bone deep. His hands roamed my back, mapping my curves through the thin fabric of my dress, while mine tangled in his hair, pulling him closer. Heat built between us, slow and inexorable as lava. When he lifted his head, we were both breathing hard. I should stop, he murmured against my lips. Should let you go before I can't. What if I don't want you to stop? His eyes darkened to storm clouds. Brianna, I want this. I want you. My hands found the buttons of his shirt, fumbling slightly with nerves and desire. Show me. Show me what being yours means. God, woman, you're going to destroy me. But his hands were already moving, finding the zipper of my dress, sliding it down with aching slowness. Tell me to stop, and I will. Any time, for any reason. Your comfort, your pleasure. That's what matters. I trust you. The words seemed to undo something in him. He lifted me effortlessly, carrying me toward his bedroom, his mouth never leaving mine. And as he laid me down on his bed, as he worshipped my body with hands and mouth and whispered promises, I knew there was no going back. I was his, completely and irrevocably, and the terrifying, exhilarating truth was that I wanted to be. I woke to sunlight streaming through unfamiliar windows and the warm weight of Adrian's arm draped across my waist. For a moment, I lay perfectly still, cataloging sensations. the silk sheets against my bare skin, the steady rhythm of his breathing behind me, the pleasant ache in muscles I'd forgotten I had. My clothes from the night before were scattered across his bedroom floor, a visual reminder of how thoroughly we'd demolished any remaining professional boundaries between us. "You're thinking too loudly," Adrian murmured against the back of my neck, his voice rough with sleep. I can practically hear the panic setting in. "I'm not panicking," I lied, then yelped as his teeth grazed my shoulder in gentle reprimand. "Liar." He pulled me closer, molding his body to mine. "Let me guess. You're mentally cataloging every reason this was a mistake, wondering how we go back to work today and pretend nothing's changed, questioning every decision that led to you being naked in my bed. Well, now I am." His chest rumbled with quiet laughter. "Nothing's changed and everything's changed. We still have work to do today, meetings to attend, a business to run. But now everyone will know you're mine." I turned in his arms to face him, finding his gray eyes warm and unguarded in the morning light. Without the careful armor he wore in public, he looked younger, almost vulnerable. How will they know? Because I'm going to tell them. At my expression, he smiled. Not explicitly, but the way I look at you, how I position myself near you, the fact that you'll be wearing this. He reached for the nightstand, producing the platinum bracelet I'd refused yesterday. "Please, let me give you this." "Adrian, it's too much." "It's nothing. I want to give you everything, and you're balking at a bracelet?" He fastened it around my wrist before I could protest further. "There. Perfect. People will talk. Let them." He kissed my nose, then my lips, slow and sweet. "I don't care what anyone thinks. You're mine, I'm yours, and the world can adjust accordingly." My phone buzzed from somewhere in the tangle of discarded clothing, Matt's name flashing on the screen. Adrian retrieved it for me, his expression amused as he read the preview of increasingly worried texts. "Your brother thinks I've kidnapped you. He's protective." I texted back quickly. "I'm fine. Spent the night at a friend's. Call you later." "A friend?" Adrian raised an eyebrow. "Would you prefer I tell him I spent the night being thoroughly ravished by my boss?" His eyes darkened with heat. "Ravished? I like that word. Though I recall you doing some ravishing of your own around 3 a.m. Heat flooded my cheeks at the memory. "We should get ready for work." "We should," he agreed, making no move to release me. "But I'd rather stay here, keeping you in my bed where you belong." "Adrian." I know. Responsibilities, meetings, the real world waiting." He sighed dramatically, then rolled out of bed in one fluid motion, completely unself-conscious about his nudity. I tried not to stare at the play of muscles across his back, the handful of scars that marked his skin with evidence of a violent past. "Shower with me?" "If we shower together, we'll never make it to the office." His grin was wicked. Is that a no? It absolutely should have been a no. Instead, I found myself following him into a bathroom, larger than my apartment's living room, giggling like a teenager as he pulled me into a shower designed for at least 6 people. We did eventually make it to the office, though 2 hours later than usual, and with my hair still slightly damp despite my best efforts with his expensive hairdryer. Adrian had insisted on driving me home first to change, waiting in his car, while I raced up to my apartment and threw on a navy dress and practical heels. The entire time, I was hyper-aware of the bracelet on my wrist, the slight ache in muscles he'd thoroughly worked over, the way my lips felt swollen from his kisses. The moment we stepped off the elevator onto the executive floor, I knew Janine had been right about people talking. Conversations died mid-sentence, heads swiveling to track our progress. Adrian kept a careful distance, his hand not touching me, but the possessive way he watched me, the slight smile playing at his lips, broadcast our changed relationship louder than words ever could. "Miss Collins," he said formally as we reached my desk. Could you bring me the Cordova files when you have a moment? Of course, Mr. Knight. I kept my voice professional, but couldn't quite suppress my own smile. He disappeared into his office, and I'd barely settled at my desk when Janine materialized, her eyes wide with poorly suppressed excitement. "Oh my God," she whispered, leaning over my desk. Is that a platinum and sapphire bracelet? Brianna. We're seeing each other," I whispered back, feeling my face heat. "I can see that. Everyone can see that. The way he was looking at you in the elevator." She fanned herself dramatically. "Girl, I need details. All of them. Lunch, my treat, you're not escaping." Before I could respond, Adrian's door opened. "Miss Collins? The files?" I gathered the Cordova documents, acutely aware of Janine's knowing grin as I crossed to his office. The moment the door closed behind me, Adrian was there, backing me against it, his mouth finding mine in a kiss that left me breathless. "Missed you," he murmured against my lips. "All of 30 seconds, and I missed you." "Adrian, people will hear." "Let them." But he stepped back, creating professional distance even as his eyes devoured me. "Though you're right, I don't want to make you uncomfortable at work." "It's not uncomfortable exactly, just new." I handed him the files, our fingers brushing deliberately. "How do we do this? Navigate work and us?" He considered, leaning against his desk. "Honestly, I don't know. I've never mixed business and personal like this before. Never wanted to badly enough to risk it." His expression grew serious. "But I refuse to hide you, Brianna. I won't sneak around or pretend you mean nothing to me. So if that creates complications, we'll handle them together." "What if the board objects? What if there are rules about—" "I own the majority shares. I am the board, for all practical purposes." He pulled me closer, his hands settling on my waist. "And even if there were rules, I'd break them for you. Fire me if you want, but you're mine, and I'm not giving that up for anyone." The absolute certainty in his voice should have been frightening. Instead, it made me feel safe, cherished, protected in ways I'd never experienced before. "You're crazy." "About you? Absolutely." He kissed my forehead, then released me with obvious reluctance. "Go, before I lock this door and scandalize the entire office." I fled, my cheeks burning but my heart soaring, his quiet laughter following me out. The rest of the morning passed in a blur of meetings and calls, normal work punctuated by heated glances and small touches whenever we were alone. Adrian kept his promise about not hiding our relationship, his hand finding my lower back as he guided me into conference rooms, his eyes seeking mine across the table, small gestures of possession that marked me as his in front of colleagues and clients alike. At noon, I escaped to lunch with Janine, desperate for another woman's perspective on the insanity my life had become. She listened to my edited version of events, minus the explicit details, with rapt attention. "So he's been obsessed with you for 6 months, finally snapped at a club, and now you're together?" She shook her head in wonder. "That's like something out of a romance novel." A very complicated, potentially problematic romance novel," I corrected. "He's my boss, Janine, and there's the whole other side of his business. The Irish mob thing." She said it casually, as if discussing the weather. "Yeah, everyone knows, even if we don't talk about it. But Brianna, from what I've seen, he's different with you. Softer, more human. Maybe you're exactly what he needs. Or maybe I'm in way over my head. Probably both." She squeezed my hand. "But for what it's worth, I've never seen you this happy. Even worried and overwhelmed. There's something glowing about you now. If Adrian Knight does that for you, then maybe it's worth the complications." Her words stayed with me as I returned to work, through the afternoon meetings and correspondence, through the careful dance Adrian and I performed around each other, professional but charged with awareness. By 5:30, when the office began emptying, the tension had built to an almost unbearable pitch. "Come home with me," Adrian said as I packed my bag. "Not as an order, as a request. I want to cook you dinner, hear about your day, fall asleep with you in my arms." "You cook?" "My mother insisted all her sons learn. Said no woman should be responsible for keeping a man fed." He smiled at the memory. "I make a decent pasta and an excellent roast. Very traditional." The domesticity of the offer, so at odds with his dangerous reputation, made my decision easy. "I'd like that." His smile transformed his face. "Then let's go home." Home. The word resonated strangely, implying a permanence we hadn't discussed, a future we were building one moment at a time. As we left the building together, his hand finally, publicly finding mine, I realized I wasn't afraid of that future. I was racing toward it, heart wide open, ready to dive into whatever came next. Because Adrian Knight, dangerous and possessive and impossibly complicated, felt like home in ways I'd never expected to find, and I was done fighting it. 2 weeks passed in a haze of stolen moments and carefully maintained professional facades. At work, I was still Miss Collins, efficient and proper, managing Adrian's schedule and correspondence with the same dedication I'd always shown. But the moment we were alone, the masks dropped. He'd pull me into his office between meetings, stealing kisses that left me flushed and breathless. His hand would find mine under the conference table during presentations, his thumb tracing circles on my palm while he discussed quarterly projections with perfect composure. The nights were mine, ours, a separate world where Adrian Knight, feared businessman and mob boss, became simply Adrian. He kept his promise about cooking, and I discovered he was as meticulous in the kitchen as he was in the boardroom, preparing elaborate Italian meals while I perched on his counter, sipping wine and watching the play of muscles under his shirt as he worked. We'd eat on his balcony overlooking the city, talking for hours about everything and nothing, learning each other's rhythms and preferences. I learned that he took his coffee black but secretly loved sweet things, that he read poetry in Irish when he couldn't sleep, that he had a scar on his ribs from a knife fight at 17. He learned that I was terrified of heights, but loved his balcony because he made me feel safe, that I sang off-key in the shower, that I'd always dreamed of writing, but never had the courage to try. "Write for me," he'd murmured one night, his fingers tangled in my hair as we lay in his massive bed. "Let me read your words, know your thoughts. They're not good enough. They're yours. That makes them perfect." It was those moments, when his guard was completely down, that I fell hardest. Not for the powerful man who commanded empires, but for the one who held me like I was precious, who listened to my rambling thoughts with genuine interest, who made me feel seen in ways I'd never experienced. But reality had a way of intruding on even the most perfect bubbles. It started with small things. A black SUV following me to the grocery store, subtle enough that I might have imagined it. Strange clicking sounds on my phone during calls with Matt. The feeling of being watched when I was alone in my apartment. I mentioned it to Adrian one morning after he'd picked me up for work, and his expression went cold and dangerous in a way that reminded me exactly who he was, beyond the tender lover I'd been falling for. "How long?" His voice was deadly quiet. "A few days. Maybe a week." I thought I was being paranoid. His hands tightened on the steering wheel. "You're not paranoid." "Fuck." He pulled out his phone, barking orders in rapid Irish before switching to English. "Colum, I need a full security detail on Brianna, effective immediately. Yes, now. I don't care what you have to pull from. Make it happen." "Adrian, what's going on?" "Someone's watching you, tracking you, which means someone knows you're important to me." His jaw clenched. I knew this would happen eventually. I just hoped I'd have more time to prepare. Fear, cold and sharp, sliced through me. Prepare for what? For my enemies to notice you. For them to see you as a weakness they can exploit. He took my hand, his grip almost painful. I'm not going to let anything happen to you, do you understand? You're mine, and I protect what's mine. Maybe I should go stay with Matt for a while. Distance myself until... No. The word was absolute. That would only make you more vulnerable. At least when you're with me, I can control the security, ensure your protection. Your apartment's not secure enough. Your brother's place even less so. So what? I just move in with you? Give up my life completely? His eyes met mine, storm gray and unyielding. If that's what it takes to keep you safe, yes. I'm not negotiating on this, Brianna. Your safety isn't optional. I wanted to argue, to insist on maintaining some independence, but the steel in his voice told me it would be pointless. And truthfully, the fear curling in my stomach made his protectiveness feel less like control and more like the shield I desperately needed. Okay, I whispered. Okay. Relief flooded his expression. I'll have your things moved today. You won't need to go back to your apartment except to collect personal items. Adrian, this is moving too fast. Life is short and dangerous in my world. I don't have the luxury of slow. His hand cupped my face. I know it's a lot, but I'd rather have you angry with me and alive than independent and vulnerable. The meeting that morning was tense, Adrian's usual composure cracking around the edges. His brothers, Colum and Finn, were there, along with several men I recognized as high-ranking in his organization. They spoke in low, urgent tones, switching between English and Irish as they discussed security protocols and potential threats. I sat in my usual spot, taking notes, trying to appear professional, even as terror gnawed at my insides. These men were talking about violence with the casual familiarity of discussing the weather, planning responses to threats I'd only half understood. Marcus Brennan's making moves in the dockyard, Colum was saying. He's been quiet since the Sullivan deal, but my sources say he's rebuilding, looking for weaknesses. Brennan. Adrian spat the name like a curse. That washed-up thug should have stayed in Boston where he belongs. He blames you for losing the Sullivan contract, Finn added, his voice clinical. Says you undermined him with false information to the family. I simply told them the truth about his shoddy merchandise and tendency toward violence. Not my fault they made the logical choice. Adrian's eyes flicked to me, softening fractionally. Is Brennan behind the surveillance? Likely. He's been asking questions about your personal life, your routines. Someone fed him information about Miss Collins. The casual way they discussed me, as if I were a chess piece in some deadly game, made my stomach turn. I stood abruptly, the chair scraping loudly against the floor. Excuse me. I need a moment. I fled to the bathroom, locking myself in a stall and trying to breathe through the panic. This was real. Not some romance novel fantasy, but actual danger. Actual people who might hurt me to get to Adrian. What had I gotten myself into? The door opened, and I heard heels clicking on tile. Brianna, it's Janine. Let me in. I unlocked the stall, and she pulled me into a hug without a word, letting me shake against her shoulder. I'm in over my head, I whispered. Yeah, you are. But you're also the strongest person I know. She pulled back, meeting my eyes. You survived losing your parents, put yourself through college, built a career from nothing. You can survive this, too. What if I can't? What if staying with Adrian just puts more people in danger? What if leaving him makes you more vulnerable? She squeezed my shoulders. He's scary, yeah, and his world is dangerous. But I've watched him these past 2 weeks, Brianna. The way he looks at you, positions himself between you and any potential threat. The security measures he's implementing. That man would burn the city down to keep you safe. That's what I'm afraid of. Then don't give him a reason to. Work with him, let him protect you, but don't lose yourself in the process. You're not just his woman. You're Brianna Collins, brilliant and capable and strong. Hold on to that. Her words steadied me, gave me something solid to grip. I cleaned up my face, straightened my spine, and returned to the conference room where Adrian immediately rose, concern etched in every line of his body. "I'm okay," I said, before he could ask. "Continue." He studied me for a long moment before nodding, resuming his seat. But his hand found mine under the table, holding tight. The plan they developed was comprehensive. Round-the-clock security, rotating teams to ensure I was never alone. My apartment would be cleared out, my things moved to Adrian's penthouse. I'd travel only in armored vehicles with trained drivers. My phone would be replaced with a secure model that couldn't be tracked or tapped. "What about my job?" I asked when they finally paused. "I can't just stop working." "You'll continue as my secretary," Adrian said, "but you'll work from the penthouse when possible. Come to the office only for essential meetings. And when you do, you'll have protection." "I'll look like I'm under house arrest." "You'll look protected," he corrected. "There's a difference." The reality of my new normal settled over me like a heavy blanket. This was what loving Adrian Knight meant. Sacrifice, precaution, constant awareness of danger. I could walk away, could end this before it went any further. But looking at him, at the fear he was trying to hide beneath his authoritative facade, I knew I wouldn't. "Okay," I said again, the word feeling like acceptance and surrender all at once. "Okay." And that night, after my things had been moved and my apartment surrendered, I stood in Adrian's penthouse, our penthouse now, feeling unmoored. Everything had changed so quickly. My carefully constructed independence dissolved in the face of threats I couldn't see or fight. Adrian found me on the balcony, staring out at the city lights. He wrapped his arms around me from behind, his chin resting on my shoulder. "Regrets?" he asked softly. "Reservations," I corrected. "This is a lot, Adrian. My whole life has been turned upside down in 2 weeks. I know. And I'm sorry. If I could change what I am, the world I come from, I don't want you to change." The realization surprised me even as I said it. I just want to feel like I still have some control, some say in what happens to me. He turned me in his arms, his gray eyes serious. "Then tell me what you need, what boundaries matter to you. I'll protect you, but I don't want to cage you in the process. I need to still see Matt. Regularly, not just supervised visits. Done. He can come here, or we can meet somewhere secure. Whatever you need. I need to work, really work, not just pretend from home. We'll make it happen. Carefully, but yes. And I need you to be honest with me about the dangers. No more shielding me from reality." He hesitated, clearly wrestling with his protective instincts, before nodding slowly. "That's harder, but yes. You deserve the truth, even when it's ugly." "Then tell me about Marcus Brennan. Why does he hate you so much?" Adrian sighed, leading me to the outdoor couch and pulling me against his side. 5 years ago, Brennan was trying to expand his Boston operations into New York. He approached the Sullivan family for backing, promised them exclusive access to import channels through the docks. But his merchandise was shit, mixed with dangerous additives that were killing people. I couldn't stand by and watch him poison half the city for profit. "So you told the Sullivans." I gave them evidence, autopsy reports, testimonies, financial records proving he was cutting costs at the expense of safety. They cut ties, and Brennan's expansion collapsed. His jaw tightened. He's blamed me ever since, sworn he'd make me pay. I just never gave him an opening until now. Until me. Until you. He cupped my face in his hands. "You're the first thing I've cared about more than business, more than reputation or power. And men like Brennan, they see that as weakness." "Is it? Weakness?" "No." The certainty in his voice was absolute. "It's the opposite. You make me stronger, Brianna. Give me something worth fighting for beyond my own survival. But it also makes me vulnerable in ways I've never been before." I kissed him then, pouring everything I felt into the contact. Fear and love and determination all tangled together. "Then we'll be vulnerable together, and we'll be strong together too." His arms tightened around me. "I love you. I know it's too soon. I know I should wait. But I love you, Brianna Collins. Completely. Irrevocably." The words should have terrified me. Instead, they felt like coming home. "I love you too, my dangerous, complicated, beautiful man." We stayed like that, wrapped in each other under the stars, while the city sprawled beneath us and danger circled somewhere in the darkness. Tomorrow would bring new challenges, new fears to face. But tonight, we had each other. And somehow, that felt like enough. The morning started like all the others since I'd moved into Adrian's penthouse 2 weeks ago. His alarm at 6, the warm press of his body against mine, his lips trailing kisses across my shoulder until I stirred. Routine, domestic, almost normal, if you ignored the security team stationed outside our door, and the armored vehicle waiting to take us to work. "Morning, Mo Crowe," he murmured against my neck, using the Irish endearment he'd recently started favoring. "My heart," he'd translated when I asked, though the way he said it implied I was more than just his heart. I was his everything. "Morning." I turned in his arms, finding his gray eyes already alert, scanning my face for signs of distress. He'd been hyper-vigilant since the threats started, constantly monitoring my mood, my safety, my every breath. It should have been suffocating. Instead, it made me feel cherished in ways I'd never imagined. "Sleep okay?" "Better with you here." It was true. Despite everything, despite the danger and the upheaval, I slept better in his arms than I ever had alone. He kissed me properly then, slow and deep, his hands roaming familiar paths across my body. We had time before work, and Adrian was intent on using every minute of it. An hour later, showered and dressed, we were having breakfast when Adrian's phone rang. The tone was specific, urgent, and his entire body went rigid. "Colum," he answered, his voice clipped. "What is it?" I watched his expression darken, the shutters slamming down until he looked like the dangerous man I'd first met, rather than the tender lover I'd woken up beside. When he hung up, his knuckles were white where he gripped the phone. "What's wrong?" "Brennan made his move. He's got Matt." The world tilted. "What?" "No, Matt's at work. He was grabbed from the parking garage an hour ago. Colum just got the message." Adrian was already moving, pulling on his jacket, checking the gun I knew he always carried. "He wants a meeting. Neutral ground, just him and me. He'll release Matt unharmed if I come alone." "It's a trap. Of course it's a trap." His voice was cold, clinical. "But he has your brother, which means I don't have a choice." I grabbed his arm, terror making me shake. "Then I'm coming with you." "Absolutely not. He took Matt because of me, Adrian, because Brennan knows I matter to you. I won't hide here while my brother pays for my choices." I met his eyes, letting him see my determination. "Besides, Brennan wants to hurt you. Having me there might be the only thing that keeps you both alive." He looked like he wanted to argue, to lock me in the penthouse and handle this alone. But something in my expression must have convinced him, because he swore quietly in Irish and nodded once. "You stay behind me at all times. You do exactly what I say without question. And if I tell you to run, you run. Understood? Understood. The drive to the warehouse district was tense, Finn driving while Colum coordinated backup from the passenger seat. Adrian held my hand in a grip that was almost painful. His jaw clenched so tightly I worried he'd crack a tooth. "I'm going to kill him," he said quietly, the words a promise rather than a threat. "For touching what's mine, for thinking he could use your brother against me. Marcus Brennan is a dead man. Adrian." "No." He turned to me, his eyes blazing. "No mercy, no negotiations. He crossed the line, and he'll pay for it in blood." The warehouse was exactly what you'd expect. Abandoned, isolated. The perfect place for violence away from witnesses. Brennan's men were visible through the windows, at least a dozen that I could see. Adrian had brought nearly 30, strategically positioned around the building, waiting for his signal. "Remember," he said as we approached the door. "Stay close. Stay quiet. Let me handle this." Brennan was waiting inside, a heavy-set man in his 50s with cold eyes and a smug smile. Matt was beside him, tied to a chair, but apparently unharmed, though his eyes widened in horror when he saw me. "Brianna, what the fuck are you doing here?" "Touching family reunion," Brennan drawled. "Knight, you actually brought her. I'm impressed. And disappointed. I thought you'd be smarter than that." "You have 30 seconds to release him before my men level this building with you inside," Adrian said calmly. "Start counting." "See? That's not how this works." Brennan pulled a gun, pressing it to Matt's temple. "Here's my offer. You give me your dockyard operations, your Sullivan connections, and 50% of your import business. In exchange, I let the brother walk and forget I ever heard of your little secretary." "No deal." "Adrian," I started, but he silenced me with a look. "I don't negotiate with dead men. And that's what you are, Brennan. Dead. You just don't know it yet." Brennan's smile faltered. "Big talk for a man whose woman is standing in a building surrounded by my people. Your people are currently being disarmed by mine. Check your exits." Brennan's eyes flicked to his men, seeing what I was just noticing. Adrian's security team had infiltrated the building, moving with silent efficiency to neutralize Brennan's backup. The balance of power had shifted, and Brennan knew it. "You think you're untouchable?" Brennan snarled. "You think this whore makes you strong? She makes you weak, Knight. Vulnerable. And one day, someone smarter than me will use that against you." "Possibly." Adrian's voice was deadly calm. "But you won't live to see it." What happened next occurred in a blur. Brennan swung the gun toward me. Adrian moved faster than I thought possible, and gunfire erupted. I hit the ground, covering my head, dimly aware of shouting and the sound of bodies hitting concrete. Then Adrian was there, pulling me up, his hands running over me frantically. "Are you hurt? Brianna, look at me, are you hurt?" "I'm fine. Matt. Where's Matt?" Colum had freed him, was checking him for injuries while Finn secured the area. Brennan lay on the ground, bleeding but alive, Adrian's men surrounding him with weapons drawn. "Tempted to finish it here," Adrian said, his voice cold as ice as he looked down at Brennan. "But that would be too quick, too merciful. No, you're going to disappear. Going to spend whatever time you have left wishing I'd killed you clean." The promise in his words made me shudder. This was the man I loved, yes, but also the mob boss, the one capable of calculated cruelty when crossed. It should have terrified me. Instead, I felt only relief that his violence was directed at someone who'd threatened my brother, who'd tried to use me as a pawn. Matt pulled free from Colum's check, rushing to embrace me. "Jesus, Bree, are you okay? I'm so sorry. I didn't know." "None of this is your fault." I hugged him tightly, breathing in his familiar scent, reassuring myself he was truly unharmed. We need to move, Finn said urgently. Police will be here soon. The drive back was silent, everyone processing what had happened. Matt sat beside me, his hand gripping mine, occasionally glancing at Adrian with a mixture of fear and grudging respect. Adrian stared out the window, his expression remote, lost in whatever dark thoughts followed violence. Back at the penthouse, after Matt had been checked over by Adrian's private doctor and settled in a guest room for the night, I found Adrian in his office, nursing a whiskey and staring at nothing. Hey, I approached cautiously, unsure of his mood. Matt's okay. Shaken but not hurt. This time. His voice was hollow. Next time, because there will be a next time, we might not be so lucky. Adrian, I almost got you killed today. Both of you. He finally looked at me, and the anguish in his eyes stole my breath. Brennan was right. You make me vulnerable, and in my world, vulnerability is a death sentence. Fear, cold and sharp, pierced my chest. What are you saying? I'm saying maybe this was a mistake. Maybe you'd be safer without me, living your normal life, far away from the violence that follows me. Don't you dare. I crossed to him, gripping his face in my hands and forcing him to meet my eyes. Don't you dare use your fear as an excuse to push me away. I love you, Adrian Knight. All of you, including the dangerous parts. And yes, that means accepting risk, accepting that your enemies might target me. But I'm not going anywhere. Brianna, no. You don't get to make this decision for me. I choose you. I choose this life, complicated and dangerous as it is. Because a life without you, safe but empty, isn't a life I want anymore. Something broke in his expression, the careful control shattering. He pulled me into his lap, burying his face against my neck. I can't lose you. I can't. You won't. We're going to be smart, careful, but we're doing this together. I held him tightly, my dangerous, broken, beautiful man. No more pushing me away out of misguided protection. We're a team now. A team, he repeated, the words sounding like a revelation. I've never had that before. Someone who stands with me instead of behind me. Well, you do now, so deal with it. His laugh was watery but genuine. Bossy woman. You love it. I love you. He kissed me fiercely, desperately, pouring every emotion into the contact. God help me, I love you more than anything. We made love right there in his office, urgent and intense, reaffirming life after coming so close to losing it. Afterwards, tangled together on the leather couch, Adrian's fingers traced lazy patterns on my skin. Marry me, he said suddenly. I lifted my head, certain I'd heard wrong. What? Marry me. He sat up, cupping my face in his hands. I know it's fast. I know we're still figuring this out, but I don't want to wait. I want you as my wife, legally and officially mine. I want everyone to know that you're protected by my name, my resources, everything I have. Adrian, that's insane. We've only been together a month. I've wanted you for 7 months. Loved you for at least 3. A month of actually being together doesn't change what I know in my bones. You're it for me, Brianna. My heart, my future, my everything. So marry me. Please. I should have said no. Should have insisted we wait, be practical, think this through. Instead, I heard myself whisper, yes. His smile was blinding. Yes? Yes, I'll marry you, you crazy, possessive, impossible man. He kissed me again, softer this time. Reverent. I'm going to spend the rest of my life making sure you never regret this. I believe you. And the engagement was announced the next day, shocking exactly no one at the office who'd watched our relationship develop in real time. Janine squealed and demanded to plan the bachelorette party. Matt, once he recovered from the kidnapping ordeal, gave his grudging blessing with a stern warning to Adrian about treating me right or facing brotherly vengeance. Adrian's brothers, Colum and Finn, welcomed me into the family with surprising warmth, Colum joking that someone needed to keep Adrian human, and it might as well be me. The ring Adrian produced 3 days later was stunning, a sapphire surrounded by diamonds, delicate and strong at the same time, just like he said I was. Marcus Brennan disappeared, rumors suggesting he'd been relocated to a remote location, where he'd spend his remaining days reflecting on the mistake of crossing Adrian Knight. The message was clear to his enemies: touch what belonged to him, and suffer. But along with the danger and the violence came unexpected joy. Adrian's tentative smiles became more frequent. His laughter, rare and precious, filled the penthouse more often. He taught me phrases in Irish, told me stories of his childhood, shared pieces of himself he'd kept locked away for years. I became his partner in truth, not just in name. He consulted me on business decisions, valued my perspective, treated me as an equal even in the masculine world of his organization. I wasn't just Adrian Knight's woman. I was Brianna Collins Knight, formidable in my own right, respected and protected, but never diminished. We set the wedding for 3 months out, a small ceremony at his family estate in upstate New York. I knew there would be challenges ahead, more threats to navigate, more danger to face, but I also knew I wouldn't face them alone. The morning of our wedding, as Adrian helped me into my dress, his hands gentle on the laces, I caught sight of us in the mirror. Him in his black tux, looking devastating and dangerous. Me in champagne lace, looking stronger than I'd ever seen myself. "Beautiful," he murmured, his lips brushing my shoulder. "My beautiful wife." "Not yet," I teased. "You have to say the vows first." "I've been saying them to you every day for months. The ceremony is just making it official." He turned me to face him. "I promise to protect you, to cherish you, to give you everything you need to be happy. I promise to be worthy of your love, even when I fail at everything else. Adrian. And I promise," he continued, his voice rough with emotion, "that no matter what comes, no matter how dangerous this world gets, I will always find my way back to you, because you're my home, Brianna, my peace in the chaos, my reason for everything." Tears spilled down my cheeks. That's not fair. Now I'm going to cry through the ceremony. Then we'll cry together. He kissed me softly. "Ready to officially become mine?" "Ready to officially become ours," I corrected. "Ours," he agreed, the words sounding like a prayer and a promise. I like that better. As we walked down the aisle together, no one giving me away because I'd always belonged to myself, I looked at the faces surrounding us. Matt, proud and protective. Janine, weeping happy tears. Adrian's brothers, standing as groomsmen with weapons hidden under their suits. This strange, complicated family I'd found myself part of. And Adrian beside me, his hand tight on mine, his eyes reflecting every emotion in my own heart. My dangerous man, my impossible love, my future. When the priest asked if I took Adrian Knight to be my husband, in sickness and in health, for richer or poorer, for better or worse, I didn't hesitate. I do. And when Adrian kissed me, sealing our vows with the passion that had defined us from the beginning, I knew I'd made the right choice. This life, with all its complications and dangers, was exactly where I belonged. With him. Always with